What made you say I can't believe I have to argue this? In 4th grade, we had a test on fact or opinion. One of the questions was, the chocolate cake is delicious. Fact or opinion? I marked opinion. I was marked wrong. When I asked about it, she said, well, it's a fact that the cake is delicious. I asked, what if I don't like chocolate cake? She said, do you not like chocolate cake? I said I did, and she asked what the problem was. I argued with the teacher over this for weeks. I never got my points back. HRMPH. I'm 37 years old now, and I still get irritated remembering that. Overall I really liked that teacher. But oh my god, what a strange, cake-related blind spot. I'm a high school teacher. I taught a very unwilling group of grade 9 students this semester who displayed an alarming level of entitlement and apathy to most things going on in the world around them. I frequently had to have many conversations I thought I would never have. My favorite was on the day of a unit test. One of the slackers wasn't prepared at all because he hadn't done any of the classwork leading up to the test. It was open book. He spent the entire test period sitting there, staring at his page. At the end of the period he handed me a blank test. I asked him if he realized what handing me a blank test meant. I just wanted to establish he knew he'd get 0 so that he didn't flip out later. He says, yeah, I'm just gonna finish this tomorrow in class. I chuckle because I thought he was joking. You can't finish it tomorrow. Why not? Me, surprised I have to explain this. Today was the test. The time to write the test was today. Tomorrow we are moving on to something else. So you can't write the test tomorrow. You've already seen the test today. So if you write it tomorrow, it's no longer a test of your abilities, but a test of your ability to memorize and prepare answers. Him, extremely mad off and disbelieving. Well, I want to write it tomorrow. I didn't want to write it today. What? In 2nd grade a kid and I were drawing and coloring a picture. When it came to the sky, the kid was drawing with a dark blue crayon and all I was thinking is, but it's daytime. What is wrong with this kid? I brought it up to him, and he insisted that he was right and my light blue crayon was wrong. So, he read the label of his crayon saying that it is blue and the sky is blue. Therefore, he wins. But, in a crazy turn of events, I look down at my crayon label and see what it says, and just look up with the biggest grin on my face. Mine is called Sky Blue. Still the highlight of my life. Every time I agree with someone, and then have to argue to make them realize I agreed with them. I was at the DMV when I was about 8 months pregnant. Definitely visibly pregnant. But I carried really high with him. An old man asked me when I was due. I said beginning of next month and he tried to tell me I couldn't possibly be due that soon. I brushed it off as being friendly, albeit misguided. But then he said you young girls can't even figure out when you got pregnant and expect the baby to come when you want it to. I just stood there kinda dumbfounded and said well, my obgyn told me he's due then, and the guy said well your doctor is a quack. You aren't that pregnant. Okay. Roman and Greek gods were pretty much the same gods, but had different names. He kept saying no until I asked him what Apollo's name was in Roman. Me, I'm Carl or blind. Someone, no you aren't. Me, go away. One of my more privileged friends couldn't understand that I didn't have enough money for something. He wanted me to go to Vegas with him and hang out. He just didn't get that I just didn't have enough money. It was impossible to argue for something that you never would have thought needed an argument at all. I was 22, my brother 24. He asked if he could borrow my battery charger. I said it was broken. I'd thrown it out. Cue an escalating argument that things don't just break. I had to have broken it somehow. Not that it was even any of his freaking business. Given that the item had been mine. As the argument escalated it became obvious that, at 24, he hadn't heard of, say, metal corrosion, or heat cycles, wear and tear, or component life. He insisted, to the point of shouting and fury, that things only break because a person inflicts damage on them, for instance, vandalism, or carelessness. He seemed to believe that if you don't drop an electronic item, or get it wet or otherwise damage it, then it will last forever. We'd argued about many things over the years, but the denial of entropy was a new one on me. Playing Trivial Pursuit, I answered Muhammad Ali, and was denied the answer because the card said Cassius Clay. The counter argument was that when he changed his name, he became a different person. Frick you. When I was in college I had to argue with a class of people that water expands as it freezes and becomes ice. Why it wasn't safe for a baby to chew on a size D batteries. First day of history in high school, we were given a sheet of paper with a map of the UK and told to write down significant moments in the history of Scotland. I wrote down Hadrian's Wall as that signified the difficulty and ultimate failure of Rome's attempt to conquer Scotland. My teacher told me that I was wrong, because Hadrian's Wall wasn't physically within Scotland's current day borders, so it doesn't count. I argued, saying it doesn't matter where it physically was. It answered the question she gave us. We argued back and forth about it for a good 5 minutes, while my class sat in silence. In the end I gave up and accepted defeat. I didn't like history class after that. Thinking about it, I should have just put the Antonine Wall, damn it. Way late to the party. Frick it, I'm still salty about this. In my junior year of high school in my history class my teacher told us we were going to practice debating that day. I and another kid were picked to go first. And this is how the exchange went. Teacher: okay, so the topic here is slavery. Is it good or bad? Tommy, you go first. Tommy: well, I think slavery is bad because it killed a lot of people. Me: well, I also think slavery is bad. Teacher: you can't have the same side as your opponent. I proceeded to make the best argument I could debating for slavery and was then sent to the principal's office for my racist remarks. Frick that teacher. I got into a flat earth argument with someone. I didn't believe these people actually existed, and I wasn't prepared. My go-to was, if we started digging right now, how deep would we have to go before we fall through the hole and into the abyss? He said my shovel would melt. I said, so the earth's core is still there? Is that flat? And he said no. Listen. Strange women lying in ponds distributing swords is no basis for a system of government. Supreme executive power derives from a mandate from the masses, not from some farcical aquatic ceremony. My friend gets mad at me when I say I don't like Fortnite after trying the game, stating I hate it to be popular/interesting. Edit. Geez, Law is happy to see him not alone in the Fortnite thing. In a college trigonometry class I had to argue with the entire class that there were in fact infinitely many rectangles. The entire class said there were only two, horizontal and vertical. I tried to explain that rotating a shape didn't change it, but the class didn't agree. I said there were infinitely many rectangles because a rectangle changed shape every time you extended it in one direction. The debate started with one guy telling me that I was wrong, and pretty soon the entire class was agreeing with him. To settle the debate, the professor asked us to raise our hands if we thought there were infinitely many rectangles. I was the only one who raised my hand. He then said, there are, in fact, infinitely many rectangles for the exact reason that he said, and continued the lesson. I was right. That peens do not affect the structural integrity of vags unless you're literally hung like a horse. That Saudi Arabia is not one of the safest places on earth. This dude tried to convince me that the Star Wars movies were based on the books. Dumb, but possible. I pulled out the book, showed him the earliest publishing date, 1978, whereas the movie came out in 77. Case closed, right? Nope. Proceeded to reach until I gave up and stopped talking. I had a fight with my husband while he was training me during our workout. We had just begun exercising, and I'm not an athlete and would never describe myself as athletic, if you catch my drift. My husband, on the other hand, was a personal trainer and is an army vet. During our workout he tried to make me do push-ups. I told him I literally cannot do a push-up. My twiggy weeny weakling arms and crappy core muscles would literally not let me do a push-up if my life depended on it. He did not understand this. He just did not understand that someone could be so weak and not be able to do the exercises he could do. It was very frustrating. And yes, if anyone is curious, I can now do push-ups. I'm very proud of my 10 in a row. Lol. That Spanish means someone/something related to Spain, and not generic Spanish speaking person. A Peruvian isn't Spanish. For frick's sake. In US. Speaking to a US lawyer. Had a 10-minute argument over whether the US has an official national language. We do not. I had to Google it to settle the dispute. But even then it took another maybe 3 minutes of me going, no, you're literally just wrong in this. I can't explain the difference, because an official language and a lingua franca any other way. You're a lawyer for Christ's sakes. To end things. Having a baby is not going to automatically change your life for the better or fix your dysfunctional relationship. Before reading this, just know I have respect for the LGBT community. I may not agree with everything, but I respect it. Anyway, a few weeks ago I got into an argument with someone of the community and they were saying that straight isn't a sexuality because it's not a part of the LGBT community. It's called heterosexuality. It's also a sexual orientation or preference, making it a sexuality. I studied in China for a while. One of my friends was moving out of town and asked me to round up any stuff she forgot and send it to her parents in Europe. Sure thing. Packed her stuff in a box and went to the post office. Me, hello. I'd like to send this to Europe. Postal clerk, okay. Which country? Me, Slovenia. PC, there is no such place. Me, I'm pretty sure there is. My friend is from there. PC, can't be. There is no country by that name. Me, yes, there is. It's located east of Italy and the capital is Ljubljana. PC, it's no use. Me, would you please humor me and check? It's spelled Cluonyi in Chinese. PC, Saoli, that'll be 114 yuan. In App Chemical in high school, our teacher gave us a throwaway question for an extra credit point. Which is heavier, a pound of lead or a pound of feathers? I argued with one of my friends after the test for way too long before just walking away from her because she couldn't understand. A friend thought that Hitler was captured and appeared at the Nuremberg trials. To top it all off, they were doing a presentation about the trials at that time and should have known this already. How not clearing your plate won't change a thing about poor kids in Africa. One of my auntie's friends opened her Bible and demanded, "Show me where the cavemen are." How to pronounce Ake. My college professor pronounced it Ake, and I told her it was Arsie. After going back and forth for a bit, she said, "I know how it's pronounced, so it would be best if you'd stop arguing with me." How to spell my own name. My teacher in middle school insisted I was spelling my name wrong and would write it wrong on all my papers. After a few weeks I gave up and just let her do it. The real kicker is I have a pretty average name. There's a couple different spelling variations, but mine is the most common. She thought India was a separate continent than Asia. You can't trust the internet, she said. Silencers, or more accurately suppressors, do not produce the famous Hollywood mouse fart sound. That is not how reality works, or physics, nor do they turn people into invisible super stealthy hyper ninja assassins. They're a piece of safety equipment that dampens the noise of a gunshot from causes physical harm down to merely holy crap, that's loud. Sitting at a table with 4 people, all with at least a master's degree in molecular biology or microbiology, and I'm the only one who's not a creationist. My best friend and I had an animation project as our assignment. We could work in groups, and we had the end of the year to finish it. Our art style was low poly. Couple of months later, we were running out of time on the animation project and had about a month to complete it, and we had barely done enough. This was because we had to cover other works between the animation. So, while we get on with it creating models for the setting, I go to my best friend to check up on how's the work coming along. Everything seemed fine and dandy until I notice one object in high poly count. I tell him to reduce it because the poly is too high. He then goes on to say, "Why does that matter? You may guess where this is going." After reminding of the low poly style, he just goes on to say, "I don't remember agreeing to this. We did a presentation on this, mentioned art style. He even wrote the art style down on document, but refuses to check because he thinks he right. Good thing I also had his Word document and showed him. After the absolute evidence I give. After all that, This cock monkey says I manipulated him to thinking the art style was agreed upon by both of us. But really it was just me choosing that it was agreed, which I did choose art style. But we both agreed to it. I was like, frick it. There isn't anything left to say but one thing. You know what? Do whatever you want. I can't be bothered arguing about something we already agreed upon. He goes back to his desk a little mad. After about half an hour he comes back to me saying I was right. I literally didn't want to waste my breath and just told him to get on with it. Ugh. The time I didn't fake throw the ball to my dog. My mother and her 4 sisters had 2 feuds that each lasted for over a year, all about the stupidest stuff. The first was whether Yoo-hoo, the chocolate milk drink, was really Yoo-hoo, or, as my aunt demanded, was Yahoo. The second was about one of Sheryl Crow's songs, where the lyrics go, all I wanna do is have some fun. Or, according to that same aunt, was all I wanna do is chew some gum. My husband tried to tell me that hot water doesn't clean any better than cold water. I thought he was joking at first, and he would not believe me when I tried to explain. I'm still kinda stumped, because he's really smart, and this is pretty basic. I think he just had a brain fart moment, and then held his ground, because back then he would rather die than admit he was wrong. My cousin vehemently believes global warming is a myth and a hoax made up by the left. He's in his 50s, and owns a successful lawn care company that he started in high school. During the winter, his trucks are turned into a fleet of plow trucks to service his clients during the harsh New England winters. He's spent the past 40 years working outside, completely dependent upon the seasons, the weather, and the temperature to make his living. He doesn't believe in climate change or global warming. He constantly complains about the weather being different than it used to be when he was a kid and when he first started his business. But the motherfucker doesn't believe in climate change. The earth isn't freaking flat. Explaining the Monty Hall problem to people who just don't get it. Our house only has 1 bathroom. I had to poop really bad and my daughter was taking forever. When I asked her to hurry up, she told me I should just go poop in the backyard. I spent 2 minutes telling her all the reasons why that wasn't reasonable. I couldn't believe I was having to argue about whether or not I should poop in my backyard. When she finished, she flushed, came out, looked at me like I was a huge idiot, and told me she was just kidding. Trolled by a 6-year-old. That cigarettes cause heart disease all the time. But I know this guy who smokes like a pack a day since he was 11 and when people think Donald Trump is an honest and decent man, I cannot believe anyone is that stupid. It's terrifying. When a chef at the restaurant I work at wanted to try and tell me that the frozen rolls he heated up were just fine to put out on a table, even though they were still ice cold in the middle, he yelled at me about questioning his 25 years of cooking experience. To which I replied, with 25 years of experience, you should be able to heat up some damn rolls properly. There's no fixing stupid. I didn't make that much of an effort arguing the point, but here it is. Changing your mind isn't a manipulation tactic. Just because you've felt differently in the past doesn't mean you're locked into a viewpoint forever. It's ridiculous and incredibly arrogant to assume that I'm just saying that my viewpoint on major life events haven't actually changed, but that I'm somehow telling you about it to manipulate you. Ridiculous. In 6th grade, my teacher asked whether the dog was cute as an opinion or fact. I said it was an opinion. She said it was a fact, and basically told me to STFU. I had to argue there was never a point in history when Korea ruled the world. That you're not still a virgin if you had bad sex. Intercourse only requires penetration. You're not a virgin if you had intercourse. It's not a poop hole loophole. There's no evidence for evolution. Really calibrates expectations right there. One of my friends believes that there exist no shadows on the moon because the sun is shining from all angles onto it. That is also one reason for him to think that the moon landing is staged. He believes that the landing happened though, but way later. That vaping anything is in fact not healthy for your lungs. That planets and stars have nothing to do with one's mentality or future. Every year about this time I post a reminder that fans don't cool the air. They only cool warm bodies that feel the breeze. It's easily verifiable with Google or whatever. Every year I get boatloads of hate. Girls that believe in zodiac signs. Oh god, they are so dumb. I've even heard you are a Sagittarius. They don't believe in it and that's why you don't. That freaking clouds move. Look at the freaking sky longer than 10 seconds. Alas. She insisted she was right and she didn't want to talk about it anymore because it was annoying her. Was talking to a Tinder match. Everything is cool, so we exchange numbers and begin texting more. At some point the topic of outer space came up and she told me she doesn't believe in astronauts. I thought she was joking at first but then I realized she was 100% serious. I tried to argue with her, but quickly decided it wasn't worth it and just stopped talking to her. Took my girlfriend, now wife, to a local hockey game about 7 years ago. Admission was $5/person. Handed the guy at the table a $20. Guy seems distracted, but hands me 2 tickets. I also need my change, I said patiently. What change? He replied, in a Turkish manner. I gave you a $20. No, you gave me a $10. To this day, I want to track this guy down and punch his goddamn stupid mouth so hard his teeth leave a permanent impression on the back of his lips. Literally just posted on a news article about Mar-a-Lago hotel applying for 40 visa workers. If you can't see the hypocrisy of everything Trump says then goes to hire foreigners at his own hotel, you are an idiot. I don't care if it's him or his son's in charge of the damn thing. It's effectively the same and it's oozing with hypocrisy. Some younger friends of mine once asked me to teach them some basic facts about WWII, Nazism, and the like. They must have been in 10th grade, so I was in 11th. Everything was going smoothly while I covered the main points of the Nazi ideology and Hitler's first political actions, until I mentioned, aside from the known by all but them, apparently, anti-Semitic actions, the animal protection actions by Hitler. One of them started going crazy and telling me that, despite all of Hitler's horrific measures, he was a good guy because he helped the little animals. It ended up with her calling me a speciesist who didn't appreciate Adolf the animal hero Hitler's deeds towards helping animals, and who didn't value animal life, and who just focused on the bad things he did to human beings. Needless to say, this improvised lesson of mine ended there and then. Someone tried to tell me that mental illness isn't real, and they just need to be more spiritual. When a guy was arguing with me about why we needed a border wall, his argument was to say we need more of this, then slap his hand over his heart and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. What the frick does that have to do with a border wall? Here in Brazil we are having to discuss that the military dictatorship was a bad thing and we don't want it anymore. I mean WTF. Go study some history. That liberalism is not left-wing. Just because it's to the left of conservatism doesn't mean it's the left. The USA is to the south of Canada. Is the USA in the southern hemisphere? Just last night my employee told me he didn't believe in the moon landing. I knew arguing with him was fruitless, so I just left him with this. Not only are you insulting the 3 men who risked their lives to land on the moon, but also the thousands of engineers, physicists and other scientists who dedicated a decade of work to get them there. If you need proof, go to Cape Canaveral and visit the Kennedy Space Center. Come back to me afterwards and tell me you still think it's fake. Girl in my freshman high school honors US history class thought Africa was a country. We were talking about the slave trade. I argued with her in front of the class, naming specific countries on the continent. There was a globe in the room, I pointed out. She was insistent, refused to look at facts. My teacher was just dumbfounded, but let us go at it for a bit, probably out of amusement. At the time I couldn't believe how anyone could possibly believe that. Then I grew up and realized that a lot of people don't understand this. What the actual frick? That an argument is not the same as contradiction. Somebody argued that the world was genuinely a better place 70 plus or so years ago. I couldn't even comprehend that. Let's go down the list of what happened over 70 years ago. USA, Red Scare, Rosenberg trials, McCarthyism, HUARCs, racism, segregation, Jim Crow, lynching, Europe, WW2 widespread destruction among all countries in Europe. Holocaust 6 million or so people ruthlessly exterminated by Nazi regime. Communism millions of people were still living under Stalin's ruthless regime, which was so brutal it inspired Orwell's 1984. Of course, this short list does not even contain the utterly inferior standard of living that this era had compared to citizens now. So what made that person think modern day was so bad? Freaking articles online from dailymail.uk about how people commit crimes. I pointed out that crime rates are decreasing, but they did not care. I think the other dumbest argument I had was when I was saying Merry Christmas, and a pack of 5 people began screaming about me calling me racist. I think number 3 was trying to convince someone the earth is round. They didn't care about anything scientific, so the debate was fruitless. In 8th grade geometry class, we had just started our unit on Euclidean polygons. When the teacher asks us if triangles can have 2 right angles, the response was a definitive no, but she disagreed, and spent the entire hour arguing that triangles can indeed have more than one right angle. Even when she was asked to draw an example, she stuck to her claim, until she finally relented when the bell rang for the next class. When your boyfriend argues that the only way to know for sure that you don't want a rug is by buying one. When my mum managed to slice nearly the entire back of her finger off, I didn't see it happen, but I came downstairs to the aftermath and she argued that it was fine as she was wrapping tape around the 2 parts of her finger to keep it all together. It wasn't serious enough for R&D apparently. I drove her there anyway, because surely it's much better to bother R&D on a Friday morning than end up there in a much bigger mess, and surrounded by wastards on Friday night. The color of a dress. Religious cowalker tried to convince me that evolution isn't real, that it's a test of our faith in God. Despite the information I received in college lectures and labs, according to him it's all incorrect. I had an interview where I was asked a series of critical thinking / logic problems. One of them I like to use every now and then, and the interviewer said that he and his wife have been arguing about it for months. The problem is as follows. You have a bat and a ball. The bat cost $1 more than the ball. The total cost for the bat and the ball was $1.10. How much did the ball cost? Simple. X plus 1 equals 1.10, 2x equals 0.10, x equals 0.05. In other words, the ball cost 5 cents. So many people keep trying to convince me that the ball cost 10 cents. After the 2016 primary election here in Oklahoma, I could not convince a coworker that Ted Cruz was not the new US president. We went at it for almost half an hour before I gave up. This year in my humanities class at Dumbus, there's really no way to put it. This is in the US at a very good college. He said the following within 5 minutes. The US is an absolute monarchy. North Korea is a democracy. North Korea, Venezuela and Cuba are highly prospering nations and their people live in good conditions. All bad news from them is propaganda, because the American government pays people to make up stories in exchange for citizenship. When people started presenting facts, Professor opted out of the convo. He said we're all stupid brainwashed monkeys and need to learn and look for proper sources for real news and info. Egg facts are my most infuriating facts. That chicken eggs you buy from a store are not baby chickens. That you are not killing baby chicks by eating grocery store eggs. That there is zero need for factory style egg farms to have roosters, because hens lay eggs regardless of being inseminated. That chickens of opposite genders must frick in order for there to a fertilized egg. So if there are no roosters at these farms, there is no way your omelet could have been a living animal. That even if they were fertilized, the eggs don't have babies inside them unless they have been incubated, which they don't let happen at those facilities anyway. Chicken eggs are more like the equivalent of a monthly cycle on a daily basis instead of like a daily pregnancy with a viable baby. I'm a farmer with chickens and a degree in agriculture science. Share and just eat your damn eggs and stop arguing with me. Make sure to like and subscribe so we can watch together.